Hello.
And thank you so much for tuning in. If you are new to this panel, my name is Tisha, and on this platform, we talk about study abroad opportunities, and we also invite researchers to come here and share their stories with us. Today, we are talking about the PhD journey, the first steps you need to take on this journey. And joining me here are 5 panel members and a co-moderator. So without much ado, I will let my co-moderator introduce himself, after which the panel members will do same. So over to you, Dr. Justice Arthur.
Hi everyone, my name is Justice, and I'll be co-hosting today's session with Tisha. I'm a research scientist at the University of Bristol, and I work with a lot of the rest of staff. So today we hope to engage all of you, and hopefully we are going to have a good session today. Thanks.
Okay, so I think Hammond will be the next person, followed by Benjamin, Surya, and Sandra.
All right. Hi, everyone. My name is Sapon Hammond. I'm a PhD second-year student at Dundalk Institute of Technology in Ireland, London. My PhD is primarily on water governance and management, and I'm trying to look at the nexus between water, energy, and climate change in Europe, with some few additions to that of Africa. Thank you.
Thank you. Benjamin. Hello, Benjamin, can you hear me?
Hi. Good morning from Thailand. My name is Benjamin, and I'm a PhD student from the University in Thailand. My PhD research is focused on exposure, environmental exposure. Basically, I'm looking at the effects of environmental exposure to benzene, and then how this exposure affects urinary metabolite and then hematological and hepatic parameters in the body.
Great. So yeah.
Hi, everyone. Thank you very much for inviting me to this panel. I am a recent PhD graduate. My PhD thesis was based on particle physics, and now I'm working as a data science intern. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, everyone. My name is Sandra Jesse, a second-year PhD student of Institute of Radiation and Nuclear Safety. And then my PhD is on nuclear safety, the need for countries to go on nuclear, and for us to know that it's safe for us to go.
Wow.
That's brilliant. That's brilliant. That's brilliant. I mean, we have a broad range of panelists here to kind of help us do this discussion, and I'm quite happy that we have physicists, we have radiation physicists, we have almost every background. And before we start, we want to make this process as engaging as possible. So most of the questions we will start with someone, for example, when we ask questions, one person can just raise up the hand and go first, right? So that we can go ease up the hand. So if I should start with you, Hammond. What got you into PhD? I mean, what was your motivation?
To answer that question directly will be a bit difficult, so I'll start this way. I first got motivated to take a bachelor's degree course in community development. Because growing up, I never had a chance to interact with a lot of people. You know, when your dad is that kind of straight, you don't have a lot of friends. So when I heard about that course and it has to do with traveling to different communities to assess how they live, I felt in love with it. That's why I did community development for my bachelor's. Then when I finished, take a master's, that was the time Ghana was having this erratic power outages, doomso. So I was interested in how do we solve this power crisis. And that was my motivation for master's degree. And then when I was doing my master's, we used to have professors who would come in and talk about the energy side. And you know, when somebody is focused on a particular angle, there is always biases that come out. And then I try to read around, and it's hard people who are engaged in the nexus between water, energy, and climate change. So I started developing interest in that. And then when I saw a PhD that could allow me to explore all these 3 angles and add gender dimension, because I love issues relating to gender. and then that brought me to the PhD. So it has been a journey based on different level of motivation to explore all these three angles. I'm currently here because of the motivation to engage in journey based on different level of motivation. Thank you. Because of the motivation to engage.
I think there is someone who has
exactly
YouTube. So if you can please put it off, that'll be brilliant. Yeah, that's good. That's good, Hamon. I mean, it's such an awesome journey that you've had. I think we have Sandra here. Sandra, what got you into PhD and what was your motivation? Yeah.
Well, me too, the motivation I got was alongside my studies, you know. So with the physics, I started with physics as a bachelor based on the love I had for physics. And then during my time in studying physics, I was much interested in using radiation to treat patients, you know. So I was doing biomedical physics. And then during those times too, I realized that there can be production of energy using radiation. So like, and then I also realized that the global warming going on in Africa. So I asked myself that what can I also do? What can I also offer for Ghana? So I said, okay, then if there can be the use of radiation in production of electricity, then let me go to nuclear energy. So I did my master's in nuclear energy. And then because I had also passion for humanity, it was like, okay, if I can produce electricity with radiation, if during the production of electricity too, I can also be a source of help in protecting the people from any cancer, like thyroid cancer that will come out of the fission product that will go into the environment. Okay, so I can move alongside with it. So in my PhD, since it's concerned the production of electricity, protection of humanity, so it's based on these two desires I have. That is why I'm moving to this field.
That's very, very fascinating. All of you have quite a fascinating like motivation of pursuing further studies, which is very, very nice. So yeah, so what got you into physics? Because you did practical physics and now you're working with data science. So what got you into physics and how did you get into physics?
So yeah, with physics, I think the history goes back into my childhood where I was more fascinated with all the science subjects like physics, maths, chemistry. I used to love them all. And as I grew up, I found physics to be most fascinating of all, like more than maths and chemistry. Yeah, so with particle physics, more of fun. Like I explored that. With it, I can explore the unknown finding of the universe. Like the research that I was based on was mostly focused on whatever event that has happened at the beginning of the universe. And it's really fascinating to know what could have happened at the beginning of the universe and you being witness of them all through the data collection, right? So this brought me to the particle physics. And when I searched for all the researches that were done in different universities and schools in the US, I then think of, oh, well, I can do the PhD in this and this subject and contribute even a small amount to that society. Yeah, that was my motivation to do the PhD in physics. Yeah.
That's extremely brilliant.
Yeah, I cannot hear you,
Benjamin is having an intermittent internet to join us. And
hi, Benjamin. Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Definitely.
Okay.
I'm not sure if you can hear me as well, but I can hear you.
Yes, I can hear you. I'm sure the others too can.
All right.
So, Benjamin, what was your motivation for pursuing PhD studies, and how did you get into PhD studies? Did you hear what I said? What was your motivation for pursuing PhD studies, and how did you get into PhD studies?
But if I understand you very well, you're asking how I got into a PhD, right?
Exactly. And what was your motivation?
Well, honestly, my motivation, probably I'll talk about my motivation for a master's degree, because as a master's degree, my motivation for graduate study actually started from my time at governorship, when I had to do my national service was there. And during that time, I realized that there was a lot of data, as in healthcare data available. However, most of the medical staff really had, I wouldn't say had little idea, but they didn't have time to, as it were, do a very good analysis of the data.
Wow.
Unfortunately, we have. Can you go on? Go on, Benjamin.
Yes, so it was at that point that I decided I'll go into statistics or biostatistics related to medicine. And so during my master's degree, I decided to investigate health issues related to neonatal death at the Governorship Teaching Hospital. And then for my PhD, I decided to take on something more challenging, something that has got to do with developing methods of analyzing data related to exposure analysis. And with this, what I basically intend to do is to develop, as it were, robust statistical techniques or robust statistical methods that can be applied to analyze various forms of medical data related to exposure to environmental benzene. So basically, my motivation for going to such an area, it came from experience at conference. To be honest with you, I realized that, well, it was a time well spent, because it got me to be aware of a lot of things that are in the system.
That's very interesting, Benjamin. If Tisha is sharing me, Tisha, can you go on with the next round of questions to our panelists as we move on? We will just, as we have just an hour, let our answers to be a bit of quite short, and so that each of the panel members will have time to speak about some of the questions that we have for others listening.
Yeah, thank you so much, Justice. And we encourage our viewers to send in their questions and comments. So to Hammond, yeah, how was your PhD funded? Did you have to write a proposal?
Yeah, thank you. So when I opened the folder on my laptop with proposals, I wrote a lot. And in the last year, what I've been doing is I try to dash the proposals to people, because any topic of interest that comes to mind, I try to write something about it. So I think there was a conference that I attended where they were talking about the energy climate change nexus. And then somebody mentioned scholarships in Europe. He just said many European schools are looking for PhD students in this field. So it was by chance I came across the Irish government scholarship, and then it required just submitting a proposal. And then the process took me less than 10 minutes, because they requested for a proposal in STV, and I just forwarded those things. And I don't know how good it was, but they got back to me for an interview, and here I am. So yes, I wrote a proposal, and I wrote series of proposals. I extracted some from my master thesis, even my bachelor's thesis, because I was looking at mailing and fortification of grains for women. So I tried to look at the gender. I don't know, I was more interested in the aspect of gender. So all my theses just had elements of it, and I had proposals on them. So when I see a PhD program that connects a little bit with that, I just submitted, and that came with some good feedback, but then I chose the best from this one, which was the Irish government scholarship, and here I am today. Yeah.
Wow, that's awesome. That's great to know. Sandy.
Okay, so with mine, I didn't have to write a proposal, but you go for an interview, and then because I remember it was you apply, and then when your supervisor, I think when you are like on a good, when they think that you qualify, I went for it was more or less like an interview with my supervisors, and then afterwards they would tell you that, okay, there is a PhD topic, but then in order for you to get funding, you need to go for it's like an interview in front of, you know, the whole company bosses and the rest. So after the interview, then based on your motivation letter, your CV, your transcript, and what you say to them, what you can offer, then they will tell you, okay, you qualify for the funding or not. So I didn't write any proposal, but it was more or less like an interview for funding.
Wow, great. And let me go back to Hammond. So what should the proposal contain? Because maybe there are some master students watching interested in going for PhD. What should they have in their proposal? Yours to 10 minutes, and then you were called for interview. So maybe there's some special or some tricks.
Well, I think your proposal should be what you are passionate about. I've read other people just writing on topics, but for me, all the proposals that I wrote were things I was passionate about, and I wasn't so keen on PhD. Like, I really wanted to do it. When we're doing the masters, they encourage us to write proposals, so I just wrote them like assignment, and I had them. So when I see opportunities that fall in line with them, I try to submit. So if somebody is planning to do a PhD, I'll say that yes, they are the normal route of applying, like what Sandra did, which is usually very competitive. But then if you are passionate about something, try write about that thing and go out there to seek. There, everything you write down, there is funding somewhere for it. So writing it down will now open the doors for you. So I wrote on gender, I wrote on Ghana, I wrote on climate, and now it works like magic. When I start looking for scholarship, I receive links that relate to what I've written down. I see somebody was standing there and telling you, after this proposal, I'll send you this link. So I was always sending a lot. And when I finally got the PhD, I accepted one. Other schools will send you invitation, like, I don't want to waste it. You check the amount, the package, and like, no, I'm not even going to. So it gives you the chance to now flex. That's in, it helps you to choose where you want to be. And then I enjoy my PhD, and I tell friends I'm enjoying it. And they're like, how? I'm like, yes, this is what I wanted to do. And I work morning, evening. I don't feel tired. I love it. My supervisors are there for me. But if you don't go that way, you just want to do something because you want to do PhD, that's where you burn out. And I think probably with time we'll discuss that. So for me, your PhD should be something related to what you are passionate about. And once you have that, you are good to go. Thank you.
Great. I'm going to go to Surya, but before that, we have Kofi Esiedu asking, how many pages should an excellent proposal for PhD contain?
Well, if I may quickly, so normally you should have your problem statement, then the intended methodology, and the results you're looking forward to. So they're like hypotheses. You plan what to expect. So usually, I don't know, 5, 3, 4. It's about what you are communicating. There's not 20, 30 pages. Nobody will read that. What is the exact problem? Be concise and go straight to it. How do you think you can tackle it? And what are the methodologies you're going to develop? Have these been tested somewhere? What was the result? So the methodology was tested in Ireland. In Ghana, we have the same problem. I want to adapt this and that to see whether it will work. And 3, 4, 5 pages, you should be able to find something. You don't have to write plenty. So just probably what you can do is, what I used to do is I write a lot and I try to summarize what I've written. Okay. So just feel free on the initial stages. Write everything you want to write. Take time and be summarizing it. You see that there's a lot of things that will not be making sense after 2, 3 days. You cut them off and keep it concise.
Great. Thank you. So to Surya.
Yeah. So when you said about proposal, I would try to, like, I was thinking about it, like, okay, I can say about it, about getting the admission into the PhD. So for that case, you first need to write the statement of purpose, why you want to join this group or why you want to join this universities in that case. So coming from the University of Houston, I was really fortunate. Like after I'd written the statement of purpose and after I've got an admission into the PhD, I did not have to write a proposal to get my research funded, because all that works was with my advisor, and he would take our work, all the students from the group, and he would write the proposal for us. So that is the case in mine. But I would definitely like suggest someone to go with the Hammond's way of, if they are really interested in something, and they can write a proposal and talk to the advisor to verify it or review it, talk to their peers to review it, and then submit it. Yeah. So in my case, in the university, I mean, or you need to write 1 or 2 pages of statement of purpose for getting the admissions and applying applications. But other than that, once you get into the research group, you have some interview with the advisors. You talk to them face to face. Once you get into the group, you don't need to write a proposal. In my case, yeah.
Oh, okay.
I want to add something small. And then to add to what Suya said, I think for proposal, it shouldn't be that much. We should just go straight to the point, you know.
Yeah.
Your objective, the methodology, why you think that you should work on this. And why do you think that they should pick you for that? You know, because sometimes most proposals to be a long story, you know, and especially the one that they need funding. Some people can talk about everything like, I want you to help me, you know, we should just go straight to the point. And I think with that, it is because I remember it was more or less like I just had a training on just job interview. And they were like, even in France here, you don't even have to write more than 1 page. So sometimes when you go straight to the point, it's better, because some of them are sometimes lazy to read a lot. It might make sense, but you know, so we should make it brief and then go straight to the point. I think that will help.
Great. Thank you, Sandy. And Benjamin, what about you? Did you have to write a proposal?
Well, my case was similar to Surya's case. I transited immediately from the master degree to the PhD. So I didn't have to write a proposal before entry, but I had to take the interview because I was joining a project that was about to begin. And it was during the interview that I had to express what I would bring on board what I'm bringing on board. And that is when they showed me what project they're going to do and then what they expect of me. They gave me they gave me about 1 week to sit down and think about what I can do to what I'm bringing on board to the project, as in regards to statistical methods and what suggestions that I'll put in to improve the analysis of the whole thing. However, about 6 months into the project, that was when I was asked to prepare a proposal of what I need to do for my PhD research, based on what I've done so far on the project. So that was when I was asked to submit a comprehensive proposal, at least 30 pages, based on what I have done. Yes, based on what I've done so far on the project, and then the experience I've got with the data available, and the proposed methods that I believe are appropriate. And if there are none, do I intend to propose new methods of analyzing the data available? So I didn't really have to write a proposal on entry, but I had to go through an interview to, as it were, give information about what I'm capable of and what I'm bringing on board.
All right. Thank you. I think Justice is going to take over, but before that, there's a question here from Prince Nana. Thinking beyond your PhD, is our society honestly benefiting from our everyday research? Or is the science community rather more focused on producing research articles? I think any of you could take this.
So I think to follow up with this question, I think this was one of the questions we were going to ask all of you. What is your research interest? I know most of you have spoken about what you've been doing, and we want to specifically kind of delve into what are your research interests. and what is the impact of your research, right? I think it goes on to kind of emphasize what Prince is asking: is your research benefiting the wider society, or it's just in academia? It's just like producing research articles. Are you doing the research just to produce articles, or is your research benefiting the wider society? So this is the next question we are going to kind of discuss in the next 5 or 10 minutes, of what are your research interests and what are the impacts of what you are working on. So probably we'll start with Surya. So you can start with that.
All right. So the thesis during my PhD was based on finding the clusters of strange quark in the relativistic heavy ion collision at the Large Hadron Collider. So it is. So like I said before, it was based on the event that has happened at the beginning of the universe, right? So the grand motivation of this aspect is, like, if I can find some characteristic feature that have taken place during the beginning of the universe, I can then extrapolate that concept and know about the present universe. Like, for example, people say that there could be a huge amount of heavy quarks at the center of neutrino. We don't know that, right? But having find, like from my thesis, if I could find the cluster of the strange quark in some space in the collision, then that would definitely relate to, or that would definitely support the idea of having a heavier quark or a strange quark at the center of neutrino. So whatever my PhD thesis was all about, it was to contribute towards the present understanding of the universe. So it is more in the fundamental level, fundamental science level. If going through this question, contributing towards a society, then I would say that it would contribute towards the science society. Sorry.
And if anyone has open YouTube, can you please or you can all switch off your mic?
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, you can continue.
All right. Yeah. So that's what I said. Contributing towards the community. Yes, it is contributing in a small step towards the community. I think research has to be there. I mean, look at this. Look at the situation at the present moment also. Like, it's because of this research we have advanced so much that the vaccination is has made quite quickly, right? So I think research definitely contributes towards the society. The more the research, the more better outcomes we can have. Yeah.
That's interesting. That your research is to better understand what is in the universe. I mean,
I mean, so also another thing is like, if I give you an example of when the electron was discovered at the first, people doesn't knew what its use is, right? Yeah. And look at the world now. Everything is like with electrons and all. Exactly. So you never know what comes out from that research. Yeah. So it may take place after 50 years, after 100 years. Yeah. So research is important. Yeah. Thank you.
Okay, that's quite nice. And Sandra, so what is your research about, and what is the impact of your research?
Okay, so my research is broad. The impact it will have on the environment, like reduction of global warming. You know, Ghana, for instance, we have reactors, but we don't have a nuclear power plant. And then we've also heard of a lot of nuclear accidents that occur, like Fukushima, like Chernobyl nuclear accident. So because of these accidents, there are a lot of fear in people to go nuclear. We don't look beyond the importance of nuclear. Yes, I know accidents do occur, but then there has to be education that people need on nuclear. So what I'm doing now is in France, the company I'm working with, we are developing a code called ASTEC, and it's Accident Source Term Evaluation Code. So with this code, it can help to look at the future to prevent any accident case that will occur. And even if nuclear accidents will occur, it will reduce the cancer that will come from the iodine that will go into the environment, that is thyroid cancer. So with my thesis that I'm doing, we are analyzing or we are evaluating on the structures of the nuclear power plant. We get all the necessary information we need through thermodynamics. Then we will use it in modeling of the system. And because the experiment I'll do, it will serve as an input data for the modeling of the system. And after this modeling, it will help in improving the ASTEC code that is being developed. So it's more or less like it's an advice that we are giving to other countries to go on nuclear. And in as much as they need to go on nuclear, they need to see that nuclear is also safe. And because they have to see that nuclear is also safe, they have to know what have been done that is making nuclear safe. So with all these studies, because my PhD, for instance, it is based on different structures. Previous PhD student did some part of the structure of nuclear power plants. I'm doing other parts. So all these parts, we add all of them together as input data for the modeling of the system to help the society at large. So yes, the research is for the society as much as we publish articles and the rest is for the society too.
Yeah, that's interesting. But by the way, if you don't publish, I'm not sure you'll be able to finish your PhD anyway. So it's also it's also part of the process. Yeah. So just to as a follow up to what you said, Sandra, do you think we are at the point where countries can begin using nuclear power?
Yes, I know. To build a nuclear power plant need a lot of resources, I know. But I think bit by bit, because I think I read a story about in Ghana, like Kwame Nkrumah, during their time, they thought of nuclear power plants. But that was the time that they also heard of these accidents that was going on. So I think, yes, some of the countries, I think in Germany too, they want to stop nuclear. So it's in and out. That is why we need more education. We need more seminars to teach people what nuclear really means. So I think as time goes on, people getting to know much information about nuclear, yes, countries will go on nuclear because at least we can reduce global warming and look at the electricity problems in Africa. So having all these education, and I know that since our leaders can go out there for funding, for other things, when they get to understand how important nuclear is, they can also seek for funding for the building of nuclear power plants. It will take time, but it's the best.
Okay, that's quite interesting. That's very, very interesting. Ben, so what is your research about, and what is the impact that your research has on the wider society? Ben, I think your mic is off.
Okay, can you hear me now? Yeah. So I'm in Thailand, and about 8 years ago, there was an oil spill incident in the country. And currently, my research is focused on evaluating the health effects, the long-term health effects of the oil spill among those who participated in the oil spill cleanup. So in the first part of the project, which I wasn't part, the analysis was based on finding the acute effect, the immediate impact on health of the oil spill. And then after that, there was a 5-year follow-up plan so that anyone who participated in the cleanup exercise would have to report for a health check every year. And now my responsibility now is to evaluate these long-term measurements of blood components and determine whether there was a significant impact of the oil spill on the health of the cleaners or not, as compared to the amount of oil that was spilled. And then also in doing that, I'd have to evaluate the cleanup protocol that was used as to whether in the long term it was an effective protocol or not, and provide appropriate suggestion for policy implementation in the future. So basically, I would say that this research has a direct impact on public health. It has a direct impact on public health, as the results would be used to determine which subjects need more healthcare in the future, and then what should be done in the event of another oil spill. Yes.
Okay, that's quite interesting. I mean, you're all doing quite an impactful research and pursuing very good studies in science. And Hammond, what is? I mean, I know you've spoken much about the background of your study. So, what is your research really about, and what is the wider impact?
All right, thank you. So I think I read the question again, and on Tisha's show there is research spotlight where our colleagues come to explain into details how their research is making impact. So I think Kofi or our viewer should keep an eye on that research spotlight event and probably subscribe so that he can watch them. My colleagues do talk about their impact, and sometimes I get amazed with it. So personally, for me, my research is looking at the governance and management of water in the Republic of Ireland. And I'm in my second year now. Just last week, I had a meeting with the National Forum. That's the body that looks into water, and they adapted one of my objective into how to communicate water during periods of drought, because it rains a lot in the country and everybody thinks there is water, but the quality is not as assumed. So people misuse water, and during summertime, people have swimming pools in front of their house, they waste water. And so I did a bit of research in how to communicate water efficiency and conservation. And the forum has adapted it. So nationally, they are going to implement that. That is an impact on it. On overall, at the end of my PhD, my research will be looking at how to include gender in water planning and management, and how rural communities, especially because water that is supplied in the urban areas are not as they are in the rural areas in Ireland here. So how urban rural settlement can have equal standard or quality of water. And then overall, we are the only country in Europe where we don't pay for water charges. So most Irish people don't want to hear it when I talk about that aspect of my work. But at the end of the day, I'll be proposing how they can start taking domestic water charges so that they can improve the quality. And anytime I go for a conference and I talk about this and there's an Irish, it's like, no ways. But then that is an impact that is going to happen. So at the end of the day, water resources in the country will be improved, and then the overall environment, what source of energy do we use in pumping water or supplying water? I'll be looking at that. Yeah, thank you.
That's quite interesting. I mean, we have a broad, very impactful areas of research and studies, and I'm such fortunate to listen to all of you. And I think that the next question is, I think, Surya, I'll start from you because you have finished your PhD. Because most universities, there are requirement for number of articles you need to produce before you finish your PhD. There are some universities you don't need to publish any work to finish. So there is a question about how many articles does one need to publish to finish a PhD. And I think the other one, I will kind of answer those questions, postdoc positions. So I'll kind of leave that session and answer it the next round. So this is to all of you. Are there any requirements to finish PhD in terms of article writing?
Yeah. So the research that I was doing, I am inside the one collaboration, a lease collaboration, which has almost like 500 to 600 like people out there, and whatever you publish in the outside media, your research has to go through them. Your research has to be get approved from the collaboration first, and then it should be get published. So that is my case. So in my case, what happened is I did one project. So the requirement that I needed is to get approved from the collaboration on my research thing. But if you are in some other field, some other material science or something else's where you are doing individual research, you are not in any collaboration, you may need a couple of papers to publish. But when you are in a collaboration, it depends actually. If you are moving forward in your research and if you want to continue that during your postdoc also, you are like free to do it. But in my case, what happened is I did one project, I somehow get approved till some stages, and I decided to finish my PhD with that, with some results, with some preliminary results.
Okay.
So that was my case.
Yeah,
but,
I think
that was my case.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. Hammond, is there any requirement of number of articles you need to produce to finish your PhD studies? Because I know there are some people who are scared when, you need to write an article before you finish your PhD. Yeah, it gives some people a scare to even look for PhD position. Yeah.
Okay. So what I know is there are two ways. You either do PhD by publication, or you do the monologue, or you write the thesis, and then afterwards you decide to extract papers out of it. But for me, I chose to go by publication, and then I'm told to publish 3, but I've done 2 already. And anytime I'm discussing with my supervisor, I don't know, it looks like the work is so broad. There are many that can be done. So ideally, I suppose you are supposed to publish 3 papers before you complete when you are doing PhD by publication. But you shouldn't get scared. You can do more than that, or you can do less than that and have results and publish later. So if you have the potential to publish and they say 3 articles, if you do 2 and your time is up, you could still do the other one after graduation. And then if you have time, you could do more than that whilst you are still in school. On the other hand, you might be required to just produce the thesis. But then advice is always good to try and publish so that it can help you as you ladder on. So publishing is not also that difficult. As far as you've been able to write a thesis, I'm sure publishing should be something that shouldn't be difficult for you. So yeah, I'm doing 3, but I look forward to more than that. Thank you.
That's interesting. Sandra, is any requirement for your article writing?
Yeah, I think I'm writing a thesis, but I think at least you're supposed to publish 1, at least. Yeah, but for now I've published 1, and then I'm on my 2nd article. I wish to write a lot of articles because it will help future career. So yeah, mine is, I think, at least 1.
Any requirements to completing your?
My program requires that I have at least 2 publications, so I'm still working on them.
Okay.
And you cannot graduate without them. So
yeah. I think it differs from institutions to institutions. Yes, there are some institutions that requires you to write at least 2 articles before you graduate, because that shows that at least you've gone through the PhD system, right? There are some institutions that requires you to just produce a thesis after your 4 years or 3 years or something like that, just to finish. Okay, so I'll hand over to Tisha to kind of ask a question about your supervisors.
Yeah, thank you so much. And before that, Kofi Asiedu say it's nice to hear about collaboration. You mentioned that you were in collaboration with 500 people. Does that imply you did a project together and published?
Yeah, thank you very much, Kofi, for the question. So when I said I am in a collaboration, what the collaboration does is, like, you have a data set of, like, for a particle physics, you have a huge data set, and there are different inside the same collaboration. So what your contribution towards it is, you may have contributed towards the data taking process. You may have contributed towards the collaboration in one way or the other. By representing the university in the data taking process, or by doing something else like shift work by going to the main office in the collaboration. So yeah, if I say the paper gets published with all the names of the collaboration, it's true. you do have your name in all the papers that gets out from the collaboration. But I think to continue your work in the collaboration, you may need to have some more works. Like you may need to work more, you network with more people in the collaboration, you need to take part in more projects in the collaboration, and that goes through your advisor. So yeah, you mentioned that I'm just reading the question. So if you say you did a project together and published, I would say no. There are different projects that goes inside the collaboration. It does get published as a whole, but say for example, I'm doing one project. That project, the data taking process that goes in the collaboration is done by some other people. So that's why in my own research also, some other people have contributed in some way or the other. So I have to take their name, or someone else have to take my name in the collaboration. Yeah. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Surya. And Kofi says sounds good. Sounds good now. Cheers.
Thank you.
Okay. Now, so about supervisors, what are some of the things that you should have in your mind when you are choosing, in quotes, a supervisor? Because I know eventually the supervisor is the one that will choose you. But when you are searching for a supervisor, what should you have in your mind? Come on, I think you should take that, since very soon you may be running away from it.
Yes. So again, anytime I speak about my PhD, my position stands to be a bit different, because when my proposal got accepted, the school had the 3 set of supervisors for me, and I can say I love them. They've been good, and there's something that happened. I think it's worth sharing. So when I came here, 3 months into my PhD, I had another offer from the UNU University. The money was good in terms of recognition for the university. You know, UNU University is, if for nothing at all, because it's a UN-based university. Now, the only reason why I didn't leave my current university was because of my supervisors. I always felt like if I leave these people, how are they going to react? Because they were checking up on me. They call you, Hamon, are you okay? Is there something you need? And I felt like this is a family to belong to. Even if when I write something is not right, how they approach you and how they give you feedback, you feel loved. And so I have this kind of cordial relationship with them. On the other hand, I've had colleagues who are struggling with their supervisors. So what I would say is, you need to be careful if you are choosing, but if you just happen to pump into them and then they are working with you, as much as possible. I know most researchers, and it's not only me, we always have our own little bit of ego where we always think we are right. And some people cannot accommodate feedback. But just relax. When I started my PhD, I put it at the back of my mind that I don't know anything, although I wrote my proposal. I'm going to go by what these guys are saying. And then when you need to argue, you argue with them. And I do that, and so far, so good. No problems. I hope it continues like this. Sometimes they tell you when you start is always cool, but the ending. So I hope it ends this way. We chat about everything during holidays. I go to eat. I play football with one of my supervisors, and when he's in the opposite team, I make sure to score him. So that is how we've developed that kind of relationship, and it's perfect. And I think when you check online, you always have people talking about experiences with supervisors. Look, I read those comments and I got scared, but the fact is, be open-minded about your supervisors. Just be open-minded, read about them and know what they like. When they speak, listen to them, know their pattern of speech, listen to what they want, write it down, and when you try to do what they want, you are good to go. Thank you.
Thank you, Hammond. Surya, since you already done with your PhD, I want to ask you, did you experience, or do you have experience with a difficult supervisor?
Well, no, I guess. I have been very fortunate to have a best supervisor in the university. Well, when I first thought about it, like going 5 years back, when I came from a South Asian region to the US, our mindset is sometimes like you take orders from elders and then you follow it, right? It's like a teacher and student relationship. You seek for that, right? But as you grow along during the PhD, you try to see that you also have something to contribute to the conversation. It's always not the one-way traffic, it should be the both-way traffic. So choosing a supervisor should be should start with understanding yourself. What kind of person are you? Are you a person who wants to get a direction and then follow it, or rather bring up with something new and then discuss with the supervisor and then do something over that? So understand yourself. And so initially, while joining the PhD, we think like, oh my god, this research is great, I should go into there. That's it. We don't think about anything else, like a personal, emotional motivations and all that. We just think about like technical aspects. I would say don't do that. Know the research that the group is doing, and also know the people in the research group, know the advisor in the research group. How emotionally supportive are they? And trust me, if they are very emotionally supportive, that would help you in the long run, right? Like not only emotionally supportive, but also if they are like technically very good and the addition is emotionally supportive, that will help you in the long run. Because in PhD you will face different kind of challenges, like you have not thought of. You may face, you may not face, but even if you face the difficult challenges, your advisor or professor, who should be your friend, will be always there to support you in every way possible. So I would say, like, know yourself, what kind of person you are. Either you need a direction or you just need a free will to do your work, and accordingly to that, talk to the people in the research group, what kind of supervisor they are, and then get to talk to them. Yeah, I think that would really help you.
Oh,
Thanks.
Thank you. Sandy?
Yeah, so me, for instance, I'm working with 7 supervisors. So you see, it's huge. One will say this, but one thing I learned alongside is you should learn to compromise sometimes, you know. And then, as to you said, when you are growing during the studies or during the research, you get to understand a lot of things. Because first, I was just doing, he says I do, he says I do. But I realized that, okay, what if there can be a mistake or something? And then one thing I love about my supervisors is like, they allow you to bring your ideas. You know, they give you the chance for you to also express yourself. They see you as a colleague, but not a student. So each and every time, that's what I'm saying, we should also sometimes learn to compromise, you know. Sometimes, even if you think you are right, sometimes compromise and understand what they are trying to say. And then you also bring your idea to let them know why you are saying this. So it should be more of interactive thing, because when you always do everything they say without also bringing your idea, when you go before the jury to present, it will sometimes be a bit difficult for you, because it would be like, okay, so because I encountered that. I remember I was doing one experiment, you know. I think my supervisor said something. He said the right thing, but because I was just following, I didn't think of why he said that. So I had a result, and then the results I had, we didn't get the good result. But it wasn't from him, it was from me, because I didn't understand why he said that. Because if I had understood what he said that, I would know what to do and what to bring.
Yeah.
So mostly it should be interactive. And then when you should learn to ask. One thing my supervisor always like say about me is I love to ask questions, you know. You should learn to ask. When you don't understand anything, ask. Else you make a lot of mistake and you waste time. And then 3 years is not long, so you have to make sure you interact, you ask, and then because when you are working with more than 2 supervisors and you don't ask questions, let's say one person will say this, maybe another person will have another idea. But then when you ask, you try, when this person say you ask this one, you try to have a lot of meetings and the rest. It will help you to know the right thing to do at the right time. Well, I think we should just be interactive with them, and then we should listen to them, but we should also express our views to them, and not to impose, but express to them and see what they also think about it.
That's very nice. Before Benjamin comes in, I mean the PhD studies is in phases, right? So there is a point where you have to listen to your supervisor. When you start, you are just coming in, you have to listen to your supervisor, but there is a point of transition in your PhD studies where your supervisor have to listen to you. And a lot of PhD students are not able to do that transition. And if you're not able to do that transition where you can go to your boss, oh, I found this, I think this is good, I can do this. Then if your supervisor has to tell you what to do every day for 3 years, he's going to be pissed off. Right. So,
Yes.
so there is a transition period where you have to take ownership of your work. So the PhD studies is your own work. It is not it's your supervisor who employed you, but what you have to do is that it is your own work. If it goes well, it's your work. If it goes really bad, it's also your work.
Yeah.
Even though, because you're a supervisor, you're not the first PhD student to be supervised. And you're not the first character or person with different attitude that he has seen. But there's a transition. First year, you have to listen to your supervisor, tells you what to do. 1.5 years, you begin to transition to owning your own work. That is when you see your boss as colleague, because your boss knows that, oh, okay, you transition. You can also bring something on board, right? So these are some of the things. A lot of students are not able to transition into that phase, and they get stuck along the way. So Ben,
it's not easy to make that transition, you know. It's not. I really understand where you're coming from, because you know where the community we came from, you know, it sometimes have impact in our lives. You know, we
Yes.
come from a place that keep quiet, let the elder talk.
I think that is the problem. Yeah, that is
sometimes you know it really affected me. You know, so I was just doing. He says it, I do, and then I got a results I don't understand what I've gotten.
Yeah.
And he asked me, and I was like, "You told me to do it," and then I realized that no, it is my work. I should do something.
Yeah. I think in our part of the world, we listen to our lecturers. We listen to. You cannot befriend your lecturer. You cannot befriend. But here, professors, you call them by their names. I don't remember in Ghana the first time I called a lecturer or a professor by his first name. That day, maybe you get F or D in this class. Yeah, I don't know Syria. I don't know what it happens. Yeah, but that kind of level of superiority, we think that lecturers or professors. But once you go outside, you begin to see that they see you as a colleague to work with. Because if that thing is not there, they cannot work with you, right? So I will just end here. Somebody is asking of postdoc. So postdoc is a job position, which is limited position, can be 1 year, 2 years, or 3 years. It depends. And you are employed to work on a project. And there are some deliverables you have to kind of work on. So it's a specific project you are employed to work on, but it's a job position. It's not like another study. It's a job position that you kind of take on to work on a specific project. And within that project, you can have some deliverables. That is, some of them will be doing some research, some of them will be supervising PhD students to do their work. So that is, it doesn't require, even though you're supposed to, because you're working on project, you're supposed to also produce some articles in that way. But it's a short phase of your academic journey, those who want to continue with the process. And if you can go on.
I think Benjamin, yeah.
Yes, so I've never had an experience with difficult supervisors before. Although I've heard stories, people narrating how difficult or how their supervisors give them very difficult times. I've not had that unfortunate experience before. And probably because, well, I have two supervisors. One of them is almost about 50 years, but the other is just about 2 or 3 years older than I am. So probably there is that kind of cordiality where we interact very often, go out for lunch and stuff like that. So for me, I think that it's important that you understand what your supervisor wants to achieve in the research. You don't really have to do what he wants you to do, but then give him reason to believe that your own idea of doing the thing is also good enough. You have to convince him that you came to study under him, but then you also know what you are about. Let him trust in your intellect. In that case, I think that there will be room. There will be some kind of room for you to also express your ideas. But going by, Prof, so what should I do? How should I go about this? It gives your supervisor the impression that you are really not learning anything, or you are not reading as he expects you to do. So I believe that, well, for me, I'm able to give my opinion to my supervisor and tell him that, well, I think this part, we need to do it this way. And then if he thinks that my idea is not enough, he will just tell me to give me an idea of what I should be reading about. And by the time I'll finish reading about that particular topic, I'll have a different concept about how everything should be done. So with supervisors, I believe I have a great one. And if I get a chance to choose another one, I'll choose them. Yeah.
Okay, it's good to know you all have great supervisors. So one funny comment from Kofi Esiedu. One guy went abroad and going for his professor's handbag to the office. The white professor said, "Please, here is not Africa."
Yeah, that's quite funny. I think we are an hour now, so we will just go on with the last round of questions. And then Hammond, I think it's likely that you probably stay with the last round because we'll just be quick in this. And I think what we need to speak about now is what are the challenges? What are the challenges are you facing in your PhD studies? And for Suraj, what were some of the challenges that you had to go through to be able to finish your PhD? And Hammond, Sandra, Benjamin, what are the challenges in pursuing PhD studies, or what challenges are you guys kind of facing at this level of your studies? So let me start with Benjamin.
Well, challenges that I'm facing with my PhD is most of the time it's difficult to answer this question because what people consider as challenges, I really don't consider them as challenges. I rather decide to consider them as opportunities, in as much as, although when I consider my PhD, I believe that I'm learning a lot. Now, in this case, it will be I could describe it as a challenge because there is little help coming from the supervisor. But I don't see it as a challenge because it gives me the opportunity to push to find it myself. And one thing that I also want others to understand is that doing a PhD is not just like doing a master's degree. In this case, it's like a job on its own. And you'll be accepted because your application convinces your employer that you are capable of doing it with little supervision. So, so far, I've not had any challenges with my program, probably with the fact that supervision is not there, but I see it as an opportunity for me to improve. And I have to be honest, I have learned a lot over the last 2 years. Yeah.
That's very interesting. Hammond, any challenges?
Yes, so I think I'm in the same boat with Benjamin because the things that I've seen as challenges are basically opportunities for me. So primarily, one thing I've noticed or is serving as a challenge in quotes is that I needed to travel to another country to learn a software, particularly to undertake an objective. And now because of COVID, I'm not able to go. So whilst I was thinking of how to go about that, I ended up doing another project on it, which brought in money to my PhD. So I took like a diversion. And then now when I look at my PhD, I'm thinking I should have been in my third objective now, but I'm still around my second because I couldn't travel because of COVID. Beyond this, I've been able to divert into another aspect of my PhD where I've produced results. So that means it has become a plus to my PhD. So in the stream events that I don't even do or I don't even travel for that software, I could have an objective changed with another work that has already been done. So that is the only thing. Then I don't have challenges with supervisors. Probably another thing. Normally, people will not speak about it. I think staying alone and being alone without family. I would say that is my challenge because right after masters, I came in here. I knew nobody, and I live in a mainly white dominated area. And then the few times you even see blacks around in the shopping centers, they don't want to talk to you. They frown their faces, and I still can understand why they do that. So just by myself, I can't eat my favorite gari and beans. No black people to speak to or speak P with. Like I'm struggling. That is it. And this is not related directly to the PhD, but as an externality. So that is it. Aside that, I'm cool. Yeah.
Just to add to what Hammond said, I mean, some of these external factors, even though they don't influence your work, but they inherently affect your work as well, because they kind of affect your mental health and other issues, which maybe one of these days we'll have another program to speak about mental health during PhD studies. Yeah. So since Syria has finished, we will go to probably Syria has finished his PhD. So let's go to Sandra, and then we'll come to Syria.
Okay, so mine is like Benjamin and Hamad. I see it as a learning process. And then I've not really faced a particular, I just see all of them as a learning process because it is your work and then you have to produce a result. So you have to learn to produce that result. You have to put in extra work to produce that result. So I've not really faced any challenge. I would just say it's the COVID that maybe slowed down my experiment. But I used that time to write chapter 1 and chapter 2 of my thesis. So in my final year, that it would be like a lot of people will be stressed out with writing of thesis. I've already within the tedious work already, and it has been accepted. So I think in my last year, I'll just be writing on my results and the rest. So I think it's just a COVID that slowed down my experimental work, but everything is okay for me. It's learning, and I'm learning.
It's quite interesting.
So I'd like to chip in something with an experience I had last year. So at the onset of COVID-19, one of my supervisors, who is a medical doctor, he was barely available to look at my work. You send him an email and it takes like more than a month, 2 months before you get a reply. And that reply says, yeah, I received, I'll look at it. It's not like I've read it and I'll contact, he's giving a feedback. But then during that time, I also realized that was the time that I really had to sit down to go over everything I've been doing again. And I realized that if he had really sat down to discuss with me probably 2 or 3 months before, he would have rubbished everything that I've done. Because it was during the time that he wasn't available that I really get a chance to understand the loopholes in what I've done. And as it were, block some of them, or make my analysis more robust, or get some better results of what I've done. So yes, not able to contact him could have been a challenge. But then in this case, it prevented me the opportunity to go in, get a better understanding of what I'm doing before I finally met him after 4 months. Yeah.
That's good. Syria, you can take.
Oh, okay, so talking about challenges during PhD, I would like to start with technical challenges. So like Sandra and like Hammond says, it's really a great opportunity rather than a challenge, because I think that the work that you are doing, the study that you are doing, are only done by the handful of people in the world, right? And it's really a privileged thing that you are working on something, you are learning something, and you are getting paid for that. On a hindsight, if you think about it, it's really a great privileged thing. Other than that, coming from a South Asian region, you have certain kind of mentality before joining the PhD. You have certain kind of schooling right? And you have to unlearn those things. Like we have discussed before, talking to the advisor, we think of them as like there's a huge distance between us and them, right? And that distance has to be lowered. Your professor should be a colleague more than something at the higher level, right? So that is one of the challenges which I faced a lot, because like I didn't have, like initially while during the first couple of years, I did not have much courage to like ask question, because on a hindsight, if I think about it, like if I don't know something, then I ask question, right? And the professor would think that, oh my god, this student doesn't know anything. So that kind of feeling really hampers you a lot. So get rid of that feeling, just ask it if you don't know anything, and just discuss about it. And yeah, it's really important to say no if you don't believe in something. If you have a good argument for it, it's really important to say no to your advisor as well, and they will really accept it if you have a good argument to it. So don't be afraid to that. The third challenge is making a story. Like everything, at the end you make a good story, right? You will publish a paper, rewrite an article, you have to make a story. So whatever research you do, you have a lot of data, you have a lot of plots. Try to frame a story out of it. Try to publish or like make a habit of writing. Like Sandra said, like she was writing from the beginning. So that's a very good habit actually. Most people think that, oh my god, this is my last year of PhD, I'll write somewhere around this month now. That is not a good way of doing it. I think writing a thesis should come from the beginning itself. While doing your PhD, should be able to write. You should have the habit to write all along. Parallelly, you should I think that would be the best approach to completing your PhD thesis. So yeah, challenges I meant, just a bullet point, is like asking a question. I have to get rid of that insecurity to ask a question to the advisor, getting familiar with the advisor, and talk to people, and like do it as fast as possible. When you enter the PhD group, if you take a lot of time in asking a question and getting familiarity, talking to more people, talking about other people projects also, not only yours, I think if you do these steps within a short time, you can have more time to gain more knowledge from the group. Yeah,
that's extremely interesting. I mean, the part of unlearning, is quite interesting.
Yeah. We really need to unlearn many things.
Unlearn many things, to kind of really shorten that distance between you and your superiors. Because I mean, where we come from, we just have to keep that distance. Oh, Professor, Professor. So
and no doesn't mean disrespect, right? I mean, that should be out of our mind actually.
But I think we think that we need to kind of hold them over there. When we come here, we still call them professor, but even though they want you to call them by their names. So that is where we have problem, that we are not able to kind of come down, because psychologically, I don't know whether it's psychologically, you're not able to call your professor by his name, because
I still don't call him by his name. So
So many thanks. I think we've had a very fruitful discussion today, and we'll probably call all of you back again for another session where we will look at different aspects of the PhD studies. That is how you cope with your mental health and how you cope with a couple of things during your study. So we will, unless Tisha has something to say to kind of close, or unless all of you have some closing remarks to say, then I think because of time, we'll be able to finish it ahead before we hit like in the next 5 minutes.
Okay, if there's nothing else to say, I would like to say thank you very much to all of you. It's a Saturday. I know you are very busy. You should be resting by now, but you have been so generous to come and share your journey with us. So thank you so much. I really do appreciate this. And also to our viewers, thank you so much for staying tuned. If you are new to this channel, please do subscribe and stay tuned to all our interesting programs. So thank you and have a good evening and good afternoon, Surya.
Yeah,
Benjamin, I'm not sure what time it is in Thailand. Good day.
It's 1 a.m.
Wow, wow, you stayed this late to do this. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Right.
Thank
Man.
you very much. Yeah.
Yeah. So, bye bye.